I'm Cheryl Chumley. This is Bold and Blunt, giving you a Christian conservative view of news, politics, culture, and events. Kalev, author of Judaism 3.0 and columnist for the Jerusalem Post. I want to thank you so much for being back on Bold and Blunt. How are you today, and where are you today?
I'm in Jerusalem, and I'm well. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about this latest piece about the Washington Post reported that there is some fear among the Israeli people that Joe Biden is going to go ahead and unilaterally declare a Palestinian state. Talk about that, please.
The idea of declaring a Palestinian state as a response to the October 7th events is just mind-boggling. And it sends a message to the world that if you have a conflict, if you have a problem, there are some people that are now talking about a two-state solution in Europe. There are Muslims' frustrations in Germany, elsewhere. So what? Engage with some violence and get some result. So it is quite mind-boggling. Secretary Blinken was here last week.
Yes.
And in somewhat of a condescending way, he tells Israelis, you have to make choices. He said the same thing in Davos. You have to make choices. The two-state solution, the state of Palestine, as if we are fighting in Gaza, we're fighting Hamas for the state of Palestine, we're dying for the state of Palestine. They're just, delusional. So, if we have a choice to make, if Secretary Blinken is telling us to make a choice, then our choice is very clear, Cheryl. We have Israelis, religious and secular alike. We follow the Bible, and in the Bible it says quite clearly, I give you life and death, I give you the blessing and the curse, and you shall choose life. We're not choosing Blinken's templates, we're choosing life.
I want to get to a particular quote of Blinken, but I just want to stay with the first issue just for a second. How would that work if Joe Biden were to declare a Palestinian state? I assume that Israel would completely ignore him on that. So what kind of tensions would that generate, do you think? Or is this strictly symbolic?
Well, I'm hoping it's strictly symbolic. Everybody assumes that this is a politically motivated. Michigan is behind Michigan in 10 points and things like that. I don't know if it's politically motivated or otherwise, but I'm hoping it is. And maybe that's the event. Blinken, issuing some very troubling statements in Israel, accusing Israel of dehumanizing Palestinians. So you have that soundbite. And then you have the Washington Post article that has all the components that supposedly people want to hear. We're going to do root settlements. We're going to take out Jews, out of the West Bank. We're going to give Jerusalem, parts of Jerusalem to the Palestinian. The capital of the state of Palestine will be Jerusalem. So I'm hoping that they say, okay, well, if we're at 10 points behind in Michigan, not because people are voting for Trump, because they're not just going to come and vote, because they're upset at us. So this is what we are kind of feeding them, and it'll be enough. I'm hoping that that's the case, and that there's no real credible path to suggesting this ludicrous idea of the state of Palestine as a byproduct of the Hamas October 7th atrocious attacks.
You referenced exactly the quote that I wanted to read that Blinken made while in Israel. And it went like this. He said, Israelis were dehumanized in the most horrific way on October 7th, and the hostages have been dehumanized every day since. But that cannot be a license to dehumanize others. How do you take that?
Very angrily, to be honest. I know on your show I've sort of defended, was sort of moderate and trying to be very nice to Blinken and others. But, to accuse us, of dehumanizing the Palestinians, it's President Biden ran for president. When in his announcement video, he said that he's running for president because in Charlottesville, he heard the same anti-Semitic bile that we heard in Europe in the 1930s. Well, what Antony Blinken said was an anti-Semitic bile. The idea that we are dehumanizing the Palestinians are the exact same chants that were heard in Europe in the 1930s. Richard Wagner, the opera composers, created this ideological framework that Jews in Europe dehumanize Europeans. And therefore, and I talked to Wagner's grandson a while ago, who is convinced that the Holocaust would not have happened had it not been for his father. As we spoke, the Jewish nation is under an ideological attack that's going to be increasingly intense over the next coming years. And to accuse Israeli soldiers of dehumanizing Palestinians, that is detached. Is he also going to accuse American soldiers and Air Force pilots for dehumanizing Iraqis and Yemenites when they bombed them? So this is, I think, just mind-boggling and should be condemned.
It's almost as if this administration just wants the Jewish people to shut up and go away when it comes time to defending themselves against Hamas, because it doesn't seem politically pragmatic for this administration. I mean, at least that's the sense I'm getting by some of the rhetoric that's coming from this White House. Let's stay with Blinken's recent visit, because I think it was the fourth or fifth visit he has made to Israel since October 7th. And the Associated Press reported this latest visit in an interesting way. It opened with a piece that said Antony Blinken received a virtual face slap from Benjamin Netanyahu over a peace plan that he wanted to discuss. I thought that was particularly harsh language for the AP. They just put it out there bluntly that Israelis' leaders are not accepting of any type of peace talk that America is bringing. And so when you look into the future, how is this going to bode for Israeli-U.S. relations?
Well, it's a good question. But I mean, the idea that that somebody presents to us a suicide plan and we have to say, yes, we've been through this before. Let's not forget why we're here, Cheryl. We, in 2005, to use Blinken's words, had some tough choices to make. And we didn't do the face slap. We said we're going to get out of Gaza. We got out of Gaza. We succumbed. And this is this is what we have now. The October 7th attack, Hamas's attack, this war is a direct result of the 2005 decision by Israel to withdraw from Gaza. Same in the north. We withdrew from Lebanon unilaterally. And then now we have Hezbollah in the north, and Israel is displaced from the north and dead from the north. And then, years later in 1993, again, somebody like Blinken says you have tough choices to make, but we made a horrible choice, and we entered the Oslo Accord, which not only led to over 1,000 Israeli deaths in the coming years to the Intifada that followed, but gave rise to the conflict industry. In a sense, the Oslo Accord is the birth of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in its current iteration, with so much outside involvement. So, we have 3 times in the past made choice that in retrospect turned out to be suicidal. And now again, Blinken and supposedly Biden wants us to make a choice. This what he called peace plan, what sounds to me more like suicide plan, not to me, to most Israelis, and they're upset that we're not accepting our idea to get to suicide. We're fighting a war here, and the choices that we have to make is the choices that I go to a coffee shop here every morning. There's a family-owned business. They need to make a choice if to keep the coffee shop open or not, because the children who are serving in the coffee shop are in the army, were called to reserve duty, and the other day, one of the sons who in the coffee shop had a vacation from Gaza, and he had to make a choice if to be with his children or if to help his mother in the coffee shop. So I got my coffee served by a waiter with an M16. So these are the type of choices in the real world that we have to make in Israel, and not this imaginary, New York Times world, about the 2-state solution and all this kind of stuff that, I appreciate people have political campaigns and all that kind of stuff, but there's a real world in here. And to accuse us for rejecting peace because we, after 3 times that we've made horrible decisions, do not want to commit suicide, that is ludicrous. And we're not committing suicide. We, as I said, are choosing life.
Just to finish up with this last question, this most recent so-called ceasefire and peace deal that Blinken was pressing on the Israeli people, what are the specifics of it, and how did Benjamin Netanyahu, aside from outright saying no, how does he plan to proceed? I understand his language is an absolute victory over Hamas. What does that look like specifically?
Well, he outlined very clearly that absolute victory means that the disseminating of Hamas military and governance capabilities and making sure that that our residents in the south, in this case, but also in the north, can live freely. But, just to kind of double down on this human rights issue, like we're being accused by Blinken of dehumanizing Palestinians, but it is Blinken who is dehumanizing Palestinians. And it's very difficult for me to say that because I appreciate him and I appreciate his help. And I'm grateful to Blinken and to Biden, to the administration for being with us. But, you have 1.5 million Palestinians on the border with Egypt. The majority of them, or many of them, want to get out. Again, I'm not saying they should get out, but they want to get out. And Blinken says no. Not only that he says no, they could have engaged, they could invested American energies and resources and leverage to put up a plan with Egypt, to have a safe passage for them out, to be placed with countries. Some of them want them because of the labor force and other reasons. But they're doing the reverse. Blinken and the administration is putting pressure on Israel to prevent the Palestinians from voluntarily leaving. So Egypt closed the borders. America is not putting. So the Palestinians are there. And talking about human rights, I mean, Biden also, when he took office, said that human rights is going to be part of his foreign policy. But I guess it's human rights except the Palestinians, because, Israelis in war in the north, Israeli humans in the north can leave. Israeli humans in the south can leave. Iraqi humans in Iraq can leave. Syrian humans in Syria can leave. But for some reason, Blinken and Biden do not want the Palestinian humans to leave. They're telling them, I don't care if you're human, you're Palestinians, and we need you, presumably for the two-state solution. That's why people think that the Palestinians are forced to stay in. And the irony of all of this is that per UNRWA and per the Western narrative, many of those Palestinians are not even from there. The Palestinians have been displaced from northern Gaza, according to UNRWA, that the US and Blinken said will continue to support, are not from there. They're from Tel Aviv and other places. They're refugees. UNRWA was created as sort of a Western colonialist entity to preserve the refugee status of the Palestinians, to double down on the narrative that they are not from Gaza. They are not from anywhere that they are now. They really are from Tel Aviv and Haifa and other places in Israel. So, so when you ask the Palestinians, what do you want to do? I mean, do you want to go back to northern Gaza, which has been destroyed? I mean, do you want to go back to Tel Aviv, which is certainly not feasible because we're not going to let that happen? Or do you want to go elsewhere? And that third option is absolutely not only not discussed, but Blinken is working to make sure that even if they want to do that, that Israel and others stop them from doing that. And to me, that sounds like a violation of human rights.
It's getting very crowded with the Palestinians trying to flee to the south there into Egypt. And you're right. Very excellent points as always, Gal. I want to thank you once again for speaking from Israel on Bold and Blunt. It's great to have you. And I will talk to you soon.
My pleasure.